Let's be honest. When you hear the words corporate financial filings, your eyes probably start to glaze over, right? But buried inside these super dense documents, they're called 10K reports, there's often a really dramatic story hiding in plain sight. A story of crisis, of high-stakes gambles, and of total reinvention. And today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're tearing down Netflix's annual reports to uncover that hidden story.
Because it wasn't that long ago that the streaming giant, the king of the hill, looked like it was in real trouble. It looked like it was about to lose its crown. But then, in a crazy high-stakes move, it basically threw out its own rulebook and changed the game completely. So the big question is, how did they stumble so badly? And then, how in the world did they pull off such a massive comeback? Let's dig in.
All right, so to really get the comeback story, you first have to understand the peak. So let's rewind. The year is 2020. The entire world is in lockdown, and pretty much everyone is just glued to their screens. For Netflix, this wasn't just a good time, it was a golden age.
And the numbers, straight from their own reports, are just, wow. I mean, they're staggering. In 2020 alone, Netflix added almost 37 million net paid subscribers around the globe. To put that in perspective, that is more than the entire population of Canada, joining in just 1 year. This wasn't just growth, it was a global takeover.
They were, without a doubt, the undisputed king of streaming. Yeah, sure, there was other competition, but Netflix was the default choice for millions. It felt like their dominance was just permanent. And why wouldn't it? Their business model was so simple, so pure, just a subscription, no ads, and it was working perfectly.
But then, slowly, the world started to open back up. And at the same time, the streaming world started to get really crowded. The party, for Netflix, was about to come to a screeching halt.
And this is the number, pulled right from their 2022 financials, that sent an absolute shockwave through Wall Street. For the first time in more than a decade, Netflix didn't just see its growth slow down in its biggest, most important market, the US and Canada, or UCAN as they call it internally. It actually went backward. They lost subscribers, almost 1 million of them.
Now, you don't have to be a finance expert to get this. For a company whose entire story was built on the idea of endless, unstoppable growth, seeing a negative number in your home turf, well, that was unthinkable. The narrative on Wall Street just flipped overnight. The king suddenly looked very vulnerable.
So, what happened? Well, Netflix's own report lays it out pretty clearly. The streaming wars were officially on. You had all these huge new competitors jumping in. And, as they put it, they weren't just competing with other streamers. They were fighting for consumers' leisure time. And all of a sudden, people had a ton of other options. The market was just saturated.
So, facing a full-blown crisis, Netflix had to do something, and it had to be radical. They couldn't just keep playing the same old game. They needed a brand new playbook, and they needed it fast. This was the moment they decided to pivot, and pivot hard.
And their counterattack was a classic 1-2 punch. First, they did something they swore they would never do. They introduced a cheaper subscription plan that had ads. A huge taboo broken. Second, they decided to finally tackle that problem everyone knew existed but just kind of ignored for years: password sharing. They were going to go after all those borrowers and try to turn them into paying customers.
And this slide really nails the fundamental shift in their thinking. You can see they moved from relying on one single revenue pillar, which was looking pretty shaky, to building a much more solid foundation with multiple streams of income. The key takeaway is this: Netflix was no longer just a subscription company.
Now this was a massive gamble. They risked ticking off loyal customers and totally changing the identity of the brand they'd built. So the billion-dollar question was, did any of it actually work?
Well, the data tells a pretty clear story. Remember that US and Canada market that lost almost 1 million people in 2022? Just look what happened after the pivot. In 2023, they added 5.8 million. The next year, another 3.7 million. It wasn't just a recovery, it was a spectacular turnaround.
And the big picture numbers sealed the deal. Their latest report shows total streaming revenue surging to $39 billion by 2024. This new hybrid model wasn't just patching up the holes, it was like they put a brand new engine in the car and slammed on the accelerator. So, the answer is a huge, definitive yes. The gamble paid off, big time. But, as we see when we dig into the final chapters of their reports, the new, more complex Netflix, well, it now faces a whole new and more complex set of challenges. So if you're an executive at the new Netflix, what are you worried about now? The company's own list of risk factors in their 10K gives us a pretty clear window into what's keeping them up at night.
Okay, first up, labor. The massive Hollywood strikes in 2023, which their own report says caused halted productions, showed a major vulnerability. With what they call a resurgent organized labor movement, the risk at future disputes could shut down their content factory, well, that's now a top-tier concern.
And here's the irony. Their big solution, advertising, has brought on a whole new set of risks. Now, the company has to build out a massive global advertising and technology team. They have to convince big brands to spend money with them. And maybe most importantly, they have to figure out how to show you ads without ruining the show. It's a whole new world of complexity for them.
Of course, some risks never ever go away. As the 10K points out every single year, cybersecurity is a constant, ongoing battle. They're facing threats from ransomware, data breaches, you name it. And protecting their systems and all of our data is an arms race that basically has no finish line.
And finally, there's a new risk that's starting to creep into these documents, one that's both a huge opportunity and a complete unknown. And that, of course, is artificial intelligence. Their reports now acknowledge that AI could totally disrupt how movies and TV shows get made. But it also opens them up to a whole new world of legal problems, especially around intellectual property. This is a risk whose story is really just beginning to be written. So, Netflix managed to rewrite its own story and pull off a truly stunning comeback. But as their own reports make crystal clear, the game never ever stops changing. The company itself has this great phrase. They say their ultimate goal is winning moments of truth. You know, that moment you decide what to watch. So the final question is, having won the last war, can they keep on winning?